All right, guys. Hi. So I've had a lot of thoughts swirling around in my head lately, and I actually wrote a bunch of them down. But this is going to be all over the place because I'm all over the place. This has been just super surreal lately. It feels like, and also I have a lot of friends that really hate Facebook. Uh, they believe that it is like sort of inherently like a bad place and only bad things happen there. So I really want to take this as an opportunity not only to spread a little message, but also maybe showcase that, potentially good things can come from Facebook too. So we'll see how that goes. Um, so lots of trigger warnings here. There's going to be stuff about the protests and the flag, and for all you football haters out there, we'll talk a little NFL, and lots of other potentially painful things. So I'm sorry in advance. And the big message here is about empathy, because I think that's sort of what's missing from a lot of the conversations we're having. And it shocked me on Facebook, some of the arguments I've gotten into with people that I never imagined I would be arguing with. It happens day after day after day. Um, because I think we're really lacking in some empathy and understanding of people's perspectives and positions. And we're going to use some debate. We're going to throw some debate terms in. So, a little something for everybody. All right, so first let's start with a really brief touch on why the players are kneeling. This is really important because we have to be on the same page here. If we're not on the same page, this video doesn't matter. So, it started with Colin Kaepernick sitting during the national anthem. And his goal in doing that was to bring attention to the sometimes unjust shootings of African Americans by police officers. This particular flashpoint epidemic, the epidemic is unfair, but this is an actual problem. It's a pinpointable, wow, a lot of black people are getting killed by police. So it's like a problem, right? So he was sitting, because it's hard to stand for the national anthem and proclaim your love to a nation while members of that state are killing people who are members of your family. Or in the case of Michael Bennett from the Seattle Seahawks, you go to Vegas and suddenly you're targeted because you're not wearing your helmet, so they don't know, you're one of those football players that we like. No, just he's some black guy running out of the casino, so obviously let's get him. So that's what I'm saying. There is a problem that Kaepernick was trying to address, and he was trying to do it peacefully. And then he got word from a friend of his who was a football player and also a former Green Beret. And he said, look, this is, you need to be doing this in a more respectful way. How about you try kneeling? Kneeling is a respectful way to address this particular issue. So, because that's what soldiers do for fallen comrades. That's what players on the field of any sport do for fallen players of either team. It is a sign of solidarity and respect. So Kaepernick's like, it's a great idea, so started kneeling. I think this is going to be talked about on Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. I would highly suggest you check this story out. It's really pretty amazing. So we have players who agree with Kaepernick that hey, man, yeah, you're right, that's a problem. And so they kneel with him in solidarity of that, bringing attention to that particular issue. Then there's some name calling that went on, and these people were accused the President of the United States of being sons of bitches for expressing this pain on this platform. And so in solidarity with their brothers, other members of the NFL are now taking a knee. Not all necessarily because they have any stake in the game as far as the black community being killed by police officers, but because they realize that the players that do have something to say about that have every right to do that. So they are standing in solidarity with those players, and I appreciate that. Okay, so that's what's going on as far as that's concerned. There are a lot of people who are seriously angry about this. They are seriously angry. How dare you disrespect the flag? How dare you disrespect the anthem? How dare you disrespect the troops? Okay, so let's back up with a little ethos, a little backstory. I'm the daughter of an Air Force officer. He's a veteran of the U.S. Air Force, and I grew up in that military life. I grew up as a daughter in a military family, and sacrificed my fair share for those of you in the civilian world, of which I was not a member until I was in high school. It was a very weird transition. But being a member of the military community, I understand and appreciate what our role was and what we were fighting for and what we were sacrificing for and why I had to live overseas and why I had to move away from my friends and why I never knew anybody for longer than like 2 years because that's not how our lives worked, because we were busy defending American values and trying to spread the best of those values around the world. So the idea that kneeling for the flag is disrespectful to troops, I have a hard time wrapping my brain around. One, because they have every freedom and right to do that, and two, because the flag doesn't represent the troops. That's going to piss some people off, but look, hear me out. The flag represents the United States of America. It represents the troops and teachers and farmers and plumbers and even the lawyers and even the politicians. It represents everybody. So kneeling during the anthem or during the flag is speaking out against injustices in the nation. I'm going to admit something to you. As a teacher in the state of Texas, one of the things we were subjected to was having to recite the Texas Pledge in the mornings. And I didn't do it. I stood while I allowed my students to recite it. But it says, honor the Texas flag. I pledge my allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Something like that. And the thing is, I love Texas. I live here. But I don't pledge my allegiance to it. It's a state in the Union. I've family that lives in Florida and Illinois and Oklahoma and California. I'm not pledging my allegiance to my state over any other state that I could move to at any moment. So I made the choice to not blindly parrot the pledge that they all wanted us to say. That was my right. Can't fire me for it. It's just what it was. So, to be this angry over these players deciding to not engage in blind patriotism, I can't quite wrap my brain around it. And you got to understand that when we're talking about, let's talk about this issue of like police brutality and stuff, because of course it's not all police. Of course, if something's happening to me and I'm being attacked, like, call the police and be afraid and want them to help me. But this is where the empathy comes in, all right? This is where the ability to put yourself in the shoes of someone else is really, really helpful, because maybe it'll pull back on the anger a little bit. Imagine if when you did call the police because you were in trouble, you were afraid that when they showed up, they were going to arrest you, because you are like look like the thug who's probably causing problems, right? Like there is a genuine fear that people have in this country of their state officials. And I said earlier that the people are being hunted, or people feel like they're being hunted in this country, and we need to understand that that's true. Okay, so another trigger warning here. We're going to talk. We're going to talk a little bit about women, and I'm gonna make that sort of meld in with my point. There are lots of women that you know who it might surprise you to learn on a monthly or weekly or daily basis, sometimes even more than that, have the thought that runs through their mind, I hope I don't get raped. And I said that to one of my male friends, and he was like, I've literally never had that thought. It's never crossed my mind. And I was like, that's crazy, right? Because we were talking about walking around 6th Street at like 2 in the morning or whatever after a gig, and I'm carrying like $1,500 worth of camera equipment and just totally freaking out. You know, we agreed, our thoughts were like, oh, I hope I don't get mugged, and oh, I hope I don't get jumped, and oh, I hope I don't get killed. But then I had the additional thought of, oh yeah, don't forget, I hope I don't get raped. And he was like, I can't even imagine thinking that every day. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty awful. So him putting himself in that position, like it really blew his mind, because it was just never something that he imagined somebody would fear on a daily basis, right? So I bring that back to my point of, if you could imagine what it's like to be in this country, walking outside, seeing a police officer and saying, I hope he doesn't kill me. Like, maybe the other thoughts going through your head are like, oh, I hope no crime is being committed. I hope everyone's okay. But not everybody looks at a cop and says, I hope he doesn't kill me. So that's the pain and the struggle that even people who haven't been killed by cops are going through. It hurts me because my cousins are the ones who look like the kids getting shot. My little cousins can't go outside and play cops and robbers because real cops might kill them. And that's a problem. And so when we try to stand up and say, hey, please help us, and we're told, how dare you, and sit down and be quiet, it makes us wonder, even if we know you to be a good person, it makes us question your ethos. I think it's important to recognize that while you may not intend to be delivering a message when you talk about how annoyed you are by people broadcasting their pain and trying to get people involved in these movements, is, think back to history class, right? When we flip through our textbooks and we're looking at pictures of the civil rights movement, and we're looking at pictures of fire hoses and dogs like attacking marchers in the streets, and peaceful protesters at lunch counters, and, you know, whites and blacks only drinking fountains, and we think to ourselves, like, that's insane. I would have, right? Like, we get all righteous about the position we would have taken. And so now, when we need this help, when we're saying out loud, please support us, please understand that there's a struggle here, and you're telling us to sit down and be quiet, or stand up and put your hand over your heart and shut your mouth, you make us question where you would have been during those other times when it seemed really obvious what the struggle was. And people are going to be so mad, and I can't figure out a way to explain that, like, Like sometimes the way we deliver messages don't come out the way they are intended. So maybe that's not your saying. Maybe you would have been there from the beginning during the civil rights movement. I don't know if it's going to get as bad as dogs and water hoses. I don't want it to. I'm fighting now so that it doesn't. So if you're annoyed or you think this isn't your fight, I mean, I hope that some of your friends look like the people who are being targeted. I hope that you have contacts and connections with those people, because then it could touch you. It's like cancer, right? Like, you never know when it's going to strike, but you don't see people complain, like, how dare you fight cancer? Like, how dare you, cancer patient, complain about having cancer? Like, rare. Look at them marching in the streets against cancer. How dare, like, that's insane, right? Like, people don't think that way. So these protests, these marches, it's not about the flag. Like what Trevor Noah said recently, like, Rosa Parks wasn't protesting public transportation. Like, the idea is these things have to be done in public because nobody's doing anything in private. Nobody's helping us. Things are getting worse. Now, a lot of people are going to ask, well, what's happening to you? I mean, the only thing I can say to that is it doesn't have to happen to me for me to see that something's wrong. Greg Popovich said in an interview recently, or he wondered, if you're not, speaking specifically about Donald Trump voters, but I'm more wondering about people who still have their heads in the sand or who still aren't getting involved. Where's the limit for you? How bad does it have to get? Where does the body count have to be for you to decide that this is important enough? Standing on the sidelines doesn't help this. And if you need things to get worse before you're willing to get involved, I mean, then this video is not for you. Like, there's nothing I can say to convince you that people's lives are worth saving. You know, there's nothing I can say to convince you that hurt feelings are bad, but dead people are worse. Now, in debate, we talked a lot about cost-benefit analysis, and we talked a lot about values, the value of justice, the value of human dignity, the value of life, the value of liberty. And those are the values that we would try to defend in our debate cases. So I understand, you know, yes, the value of your hurt feelings. Like, that matters. It really does. Your hurt. I'm not gunning for your hurt feelings at all. That's not what I want to have happen. However, if we do a little cost-benefit analysis, let's do it this way. I love Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And, I mean, honestly, it's one of the best shows ever made. But we can argue about that later. If somebody came to me and said, you can absolutely watch the final season of Game of Thrones, but if you do, your husband will be sucked into the television and die in one of the battles. Right? Like magic. Ooh. So I've got a choice to make, right? My desire to watch one of the greatest television shows of all time. Like, come on. Or the life of my husband. Now, that's stupid, crazy, no contest, right? Game of Thrones. No, just kidding. So, yeah, obviously, I'm going to choose my husband gets to live and I don't get to watch Game of Thrones. It's unfortunate that that happened to me, but it would be more unfortunate if he died. So, you're mad. You're mad and you're hurt and you're offended. And how dare these men do anything to disparage this country that you love so much? And what I'm trying to tell you is that this country that you love so much is hurting some of us. And the people that it's hurting are Americans. And humans. If humans isn't enough for you, then they're Americans. And maybe that'll be enough. You don't give gifts for the thank you. You give gifts to spread that joy, right? Our troops don't go to war so we will stand for the flag. Our troops go to war so that we can do whatever we want in front of the flag. So this is a legit cry for help. Right now, if you're watching this video, thanks for listening to me ramble. And I'm taking this opportunity to say, like, ring, ring. This is the call, okay? You've got a black friend who's saying, please stand up and help us. If you're not going to help us, then at least stop telling us to be quiet. I don't want you to think that this is about race. It's not. It's about human dignity. And it is about the ability of brown people or transgender people or, I mean, really, anybody in this country who's just living their lives, not hurting anybody, to take part in the beauty that is America. And we can't do that without you. We cannot do that without your help. If you don't like that we're kneeling, then help us stand up, all right? Because we need it. I love you all very, very much. And I hope this video finds you with the level of seriousness with which I am issuing it, because this isn't a game. This isn't politics. This is very much our lives. And we've all got to wonder what we're doing to make things better for all Americans, not just the ones we like.